and welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today, on this day, I have with me a gentleman by the name of Curtis E. Hall the second. He is a life coach who provides mentoring services to young boys of color, ages 10 to 18. So excited to hear about the wonderful work that he is doing. But Mr. Hall, as I always do, I like to take a quick moment to pause in the beginning. Say thank you for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we cannot get it back. So with that, sir, I appreciate you carving out this space in your day for me. And welcome to the show.
Thank you as well.
Awesome. Now, you are a life coach and you're in the line of mentoring. So I read that you have been doing this for 22 years. So I'm
Yes.
curious, how did your journey into mentorship, how did you get started with all of this?
Okay. Well, I got started back in North Philadelphia. Just give a little context around it. I was raised by my awesome mother and grandmother, who are both going on to be with the Lord. So, with that said, I was a nerd and loved sports. But fast forward to ninth grade, I started playing football, and it's an area called Germantown in
Mhm.
Philadelphia. And I used to go there, work out during the summer because I wanted to make the All-State team and all that. So, a gentleman by the name of Carlos Bradley took me under his wing, and he saw me working out. He saw my effort, but he's like, you could use some work. So, P.S., we became friends outside of football. And to this day, I keep in contact with him. He mentored me so much as a man. Football was just a small component, but so much as a man. So that was planted the seed.
Awesome. Awesome. Now, I guess with your own experience and with the work that you have been doing, for the person who doesn't understand, what is it about boys of color? What unique challenges do they face that people really need to understand about the dynamics of growing up as a boy of color?
Well, it's so many, but I'm gonna try to give you a good synopsis of the things I've encountered. A lot of it does deals with emotional intelligence and managing that, not being acknowledged, seen, or heard, or interpreted correctly, but also having the language or not having the language to articulate how they're feeling. And that's why I continue to account as like a constant theme, along with distrust. Unfortunately, and particularly, especially in the communities of color such as ours, there's always so much competition among men. It's hard for us to build trust with each other.
Mhm.
So that's very cutthroat, and that's why I run into continuously. So, my approach is holistic. I collaborate with the young man and let him know I'm invested in the process like he is, because I believe it's important to disrupt the inherent power dynamic. Excuse me. So it's not just an adult to a minor or a young man. We're doing this together to invest in him. So everything he does, I do alongside with him.
Okay, great, great. Now you mentioned something, not a man, never planned to be, but as you can see from the work that I do, I really try to understand.
Yes.
And one of the things you mentioned I've noticed is this competition, especially
Hmm.
with my brothers. Um, where is that coming from? Why is it manifesting itself? And how did we get you guys to say, "Hey, we're here together. You're my brother. I
Hmm.
support you." What is all of that about?
So part of it is it's a cultural as a collective, it's a culture that we've been assimilated into. So not to get too deep with slavery in the early history of America, but we know that's a critical component in terms of getting attention, getting access to certain things. So as always, we were associated with entertainment and those things. So that was the root of it.
Mhm.
Fast forward, there are a lot of things around us that compete for our attention. So now, whether it's women, jobs, or position, unfortunately, everything we do or how we're perceived as men is associated with how we perform in the same way or inverse to how, unfortunately, sisters and women are associated with how their body look or their pulchritude. So, with that said, that what causes the power dynamics. Like I'm better than you, I'm stronger than you, I'm more handsome, I can get more ladies. But all that is not important. What's important is intrinsic value you have as a man, because you are the image of God. You're a king. You have a divine appointment, and it's your rightful honor to take your place.
Rightful honor to take your place.
Hmm.
So powerful, so powerful. Um, because I think a lot of brothers, young, middle, and old, have missed that message, of taking their place. And I think that's where we're struggling uh, culturally a lot of times.
Hmm.
Now, your company, New Collar Solutions, I was reading that one of the components that you offer is King's Corner 11-week workshop.
Yes, yes, yes.
So could you break down what that program is, what it offers, and what the program is all entails?
So King's Corner is just the theme, the constant theme of kingdom and building yourself, building your crown. So that's kind of like the theme and the context around it. And it's anchored in 8 pillars. And you probably may have seen them. I'll run them off for you here briefly. Accountability, irrational belief in self, emotional intelligence, space safeguarding, mindfulness, intentional creativity, resilience and resourcefulness, and cultural competency. So they're the framework for the 11-week engagement model that I've come up with, and it's meant to attach or address every part, every facet in your man from in to the out. Realizing it's okay that your emotions are going to be there, but they're there to serve you, not control you. And
Mm,
also, you have to be intentional about who you share your space with, and also be adaptive because things are not always going to be nice and neat. God's going to take you through some journeys, but you can be resourceful and adaptive in how you make the best of those situations to develop yourself so that you become the best steward of all that you gain as a result. Because when we
okay,
work for it, we care more for it.
there you go. There you go. Right. There's a an African proverb. It says, once you learn to carry your own water, you'll appreciate every drop. So when you work
Mm,
for something, you will appreciate it more. So I mean, wonderful, wonderful. I like that. I like that. Um, Now, your own personal journey, you talked about how you were raised by your grandmother and your mother,
hmm
but you found a male mentor.
hmm
And sometimes as I travel through this world, Mr. Hall,
hmm
I love my sisters dearly. I love my
uh-huh.
sisters dearly. But I hear them saying things like, I can do this by myself. And sometimes we're put in positions where we have to do it by ourselves. And we have these young sons, but we have to appreciate that we do have to have some sort of male presence
Yes.
around, like you found. So if you had a moment to say to a sister who's raising a young boy by herself, how would you encourage her to say, you need to find somebody?
Well, first of all, before I approach people, and this is just how I am as Curtis, I try to get a feel because I'm very strategic in how I approach people. I never want to put people to defense, and you can only perceive what you think you see. And I say what you
Mm,
think you see because we don't know the context of it.
mhm.
So I have a proclivity to approach people that I've gained some rapport with. And then once that happens,
Gotcha.
I say, this may be beneficial to do with your son or your nephew or whoever they have the care of, who's in their care rather. And because all the time I may not be the person as well. So if I happen to be connected to somebody who may be more better fitted for them, then
Gotcha.
I'll be a connector for that person. But I will have a rapport. And then once I know the situation has some good working knowledge, then
Mm,
because I'm reticent to say anything on anybody's situation, even my
gotcha.
own family members, I just don't play that.
Gotcha. Good, good, good. Don't want to get into no trouble there. Understood. Understood. Now, for the parent or the young boy uh, who is about to get a mentor or about to
Mhm,
start working with a mentor, let me frame this right. Um, what should the parent or the young boy expect a mentor to not be or to be when they're starting to work with them? Because sometimes I feel like people think mentors are just extended babysitters, and that's not the
mhm.
truth. So
No.
when you're starting to work with a mentor, what should the expectations be?
So the expectation should be, first of all, it's a man that's doing it out of authenticity of who he is. He's made up like that, and
Mm-hmm.
that he's not monolithic in terms of his thoughts and expectations, and has an openness and the willingness to embrace cultural competency,
Mm-hmm.
to really invest in the process because it's really relationship focused how it needs to be. And that's the part of the reason, speaking to what you just said about extended babysitter, depending on how mentoring programs go about engaging with the community, if they're not doing it with the lasting long relationship as part of it, then it becomes a fleeing thing. And it's like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
went through this program or I went through this certain club, but you have to have something that's enduring. So what I would say is that first of all, the mentor needs to be invested, but the young man All the young lady is with young ladies as well. They need to know they have a voice. It's a partnership. They're not just being assigned a person or told, and they need them and their parent need to have a collaborative discussion and carve out.
Mhm.
Because if you don't know what it looks like, at least identify what you don't want as a start,
Mm.
and
Got
then you could take it from there. And that's where, and then whoever you link up with, whoever being an entity or organization, check out their vetting process, their security
it.
backgrounds, because the main things that child is always safe,
Mm-hmm.
always safe. I'm blessed. My wife and I are blessed to have two wonderful daughters. And I tell you, I take every client like he's my own son. I
Mm.
would not put him in no hurt, harm, or danger. Because my thing is, if you got a gut feeling about it, then you probably don't need to do it or say it or take him around. Because we all have an innate inclination to know where we should go, our left and right limits. So if they need to have safe practices and also have a chance to interact before any match is made. Interview process. Just like you would date your spouse, like you would interview for a job, rigorous, and then it needs to be intermediate check-ins throughout the process. And no, by the way, we're just we the coaches or mentors are just one person in the village. So we need to be thinking about not only the guardians and the parents, but the assistant principal, the track coach, everybody. And as the parent gets more comfortable, we can cooperate and correlate our effort with them, because all of us don't have the one answer. It's a collective effort invested in that young person.
It's a village. It's a village. Good thing. Now, building on the concept of it's a village, and then you mentioned something when you were just talking to me about cultural competency. The reality for young boys of color is most often they're going to interact with potential mentors who don't look like them. Their teachers might be white, some of the
Mhm.
coaches might be white, but it's important that uh, non-people of color understand and be able to impact, influence young boys of color when they encounter them. How do you, or what advice would you give to somebody who's coming from a different cultural place, experiences when they're interacting with a young boy of color?
So I'm gonna put myself on blast here even more. Now, I don't mind saying it, I'm 44 years old. I'm a Gen Xer. So
Mm-hmm.
with that said, my love for this, my desire is not enough. I have to intentionally engage with young people as much as I can just to stay on the pulse of what's going on. So with that said, I will humbly implore anybody who's not of color to saturate themselves in productive, healthy environments where they can learn about the demographic they're looking to serve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Spanish, Caribbean, whatever it is. How do they eat? Who's normally the provider? You know, how
Mm-hmm.
does the work schedule? What's the dynamic between this mother son for a daughter father or grandmother? Like, what type of community do they live in? What's the whole bunch of unwritten rules and social inclinations that they have? You know, so you have to get a feel for those things so you know how to operate. Because, like I said, nothing is without context. Nothing is without context. So you got to saturate yourself and be willing to learn.
Be willing to learn. Be willing to learn. Because so many times I have conversations and people are spouting off these assumptions about boys of color, and it's very disheartening, because they just assume that uh, they have they're going to have negative outcomes when they're not even given proper chances. And I think that's something that we really have to work on within our culture and
Hmm.
and out of our culture,
Hmm.
because our boys have so much potential, but we just need to pour into them a little bit more.
Hmm.
And that's
Yes.
where that's where you come along.
Yes. And it's that going back to those, and allow me to digress for just a moment. Have you ever heard of a book called The Caste System?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
so you're familiar with that. So for those who may be privileged to witness awesome sister Lana, her podcast and this interview, I'm just going to share that it's on the caste system, and it's based on hierarchical structure of how you determine who's the superior all the way to the inferior. So just look at our history as a collective and how we've been on the short end of that stick the whole way. So it's been inculcated into us. We've been conditioned to think only to a certain level. So we got a lot of unlearning to do. So,
True.
so that's the thing. We had to retool our young men, and I'll even take one step further. My wife and I were having a discussion, and I don't know you percolating. Please feel free to jump in. Like even in church, God does give grace, but it's always this kind of oppression in the gospel that like you don't deserve it, you're not worthy. Well, does God really think I'm not worthy?
Hmm.
It's like an oppression Olympics of sort, like
Yeah.
so it's like I get it that I'm not perfect, but am I really this downtrodden? Is this really this much disparity, given the fact that he's taking time to invest in me and getting to
Yes,
know me like I'm seeking to get to know him? So I said to say we're not as disparage or condemn or whatever negative adjective you want to put it as we think we are. Yes, we're not perfect, but we're valuable. We have
that's right.
self-worth. So we had to take that, and it's a healthy way to manage that and demonstrate that.
That's right. That's right. And I think you mentioned that you were 44. I've got you beat by quite a few years. I will be 53 in July.
Hey, I
So
never could tell. God bless you.
it's in the genes. It's in the genes. But I come from a generation. Well, we're both Gen X, but I come from a generation where it really was the village.
Hmm.
So any adult in your community could discipline you,
Hmm.
encourage you, support you, be an extended family member to you. And we've kind of lost that culturally. A
Yes.
lot of people are like, well, it ain't my business. I'm gonna look the other way, ain't got nothing to do with me. But I think that's why we're suffering.
Yes. Oh my God. Yes.
I think that's why we're suffering.
Yes.
And everybody's like, well, I wish it was better, but you pushing back against us kind of collectively coming together as a village. I'm curious as to you personally, do you think it's because we're so far off track? Do you think it's possible we get back to the village, or how do we get back? I sometimes I just feel so old school.
I'm with you. I'm with you. And I said this a couple of times here in the past couple of weeks. Um, I said, growing up in North Philadelphia, I said, even though you had drug dealers and whoever, it still was a code of ethics.
Mm,
You know, now it may have been dysfunctional, but it was a code of ethics, i.e., the drug dealers would cease operations on Sunday. They would still open the door when they saw an elderly lady or put
mhm.
stuff away or put their blunt out or cigarette out, when elders came around. So, like I said, it was dysfunctional, but still going back to that sense of community. What we have to do now, 2022 and going forward, we have to be real intentional because we've been so disparate due to technology and other things, pandemic, among many other things that were exacerbated. So we have to really be intentional, coming together and getting to know each other because trust is going to be the crucible that bonds us together. I'm not going to
Mhm.
trust you with my children if I don't know you,
Mhm.
because unfortunately, there's too many predatory people out here, and we don't even need to go to know how disgusting it gets.
Mhm.
So we got to make sure that we really vet each other. And we're very blessed. We tell our daughters all the time, like where we live now. My wife is from New York. We don't know about this life. We're
Mhm.
glad we know it now, but this looks totally different from how we grew up. You know,
Yes.
in terms of things you don't have to see and deal with on a daily basis. But at the same time, that community could be stronger. Because everybody's kind of confident in their own cul-de-sac.
Yeah, yes. I remember being young and being able to be miles away from my house, but somebody had eyes on me. When my
Mhm.
daughter was little, I was scared to let her go like just to the next block by herself, just fearful. And I was like, the mindset of fear and lack of community that these younger people have. And I
Mhm.
think that's to their detriment because, everywhere I knew somebody had me, even if they were not in my bloodline, I knew somebody had me,
Yes.
and I knew somebody by the time I got back home, not only did that person discipline me, I was going to get it again by the time I got back home. So, yeah, and it creates a sense of morality and ethics in
Yes.
you as you're growing up. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
And we cared about it. I remember we would have block parties, and we would on certain weekends we would clean the street. Now sometimes we would get in trouble because we turned the fire hydrant on, but you know, but nevertheless we cared. We cared even though we were in I would say ghetto. We loved it. I loved it. I wouldn't change nothing about it.
Nothing at all.
We care how our block looked, and we care who came in and who came out, and make sure that they abided by the social behavior we've adopted.
Yeah.
So yes.
And I mean, fast forward to today, coming from that background, and I feel I'm an elder now, and
Mm,
I'm supposed to have some sort of input and say so, but I experience so many times where I'm out in public and there's young people, maybe, 10 or 11, and they're just cursing up a storm. Now, if it was my grandmother back in the day, she would have stuck her,
mhm,
she would have
mhm.
interjected herself in the situation. But now I'm like, oh, I can't say nothing because So now I'm in a situation where I'm allowing young people to be disrespectful around me because I'm fearful of, or is the parent around, what they're going to say, or is this kid going to, retaliate against? It's such a different place to be in right now.
Yeah, it's sad. It's sad. I was talking to some young men here in South Virginia. That's anonymous with any other place you can name, whether it be Chicago, New York, anywhere, Houston. But the fact of going back to what we were talking about, the components of manhood, and one of the things that came up was respect and chastity.
Mm,
You know, um, we talked about being deliberate about make sure you respect others, even if they don't respect themselves, whether it's your peer or someone else, because you're building your character. Everything you do, kind and courteous, is building you, and it takes
mhm,
nothing. It's all free. And then I also shared with them. I said, "Listen, I didn't lose my virginity till I was 17." And one young man said, "Mr. Curtis, you should have been doing it." I said, "Why should I should have been? Did it make me? Does it make me less of a man now? Like
mhm,
how did waiting adversely impact me? And I still should have did it, but you know, when I did, but I didn't. I wasn't trying to race with my contemporaries, because that wasn't critical. I was football and books.
mhm.
So, but when it did happen, and by the way, not promoting anything with anybody, I'm just sharing my story just for disclaimer. It was organic, consensual, organic when it did happen, as opposed to me feeling like I got to do it. I did. We
Yeah.
both did it of our own volition.
Mm,
So, taking it even wider, be deliberate about making the right choices and prudent choices and how they may impact you in the long term, because it's just not for today. What
mhm.
type of legacy you want? The one exercise we
True.
did, instead of saying obituary, we had the young men write your celebration of life. How do you want to be remembered? You're 15, 16 now. How you want to be remembered? Were you a great husband? Were you leading the community? But it was a great exercise for them to think that far out. So I just thank God for putting it on my heart to do that with them.
Awesome. I like that. I like that. I have done some work with some kids in the project years ago, and sadly, a lot of the young boys didn't even see future. So
Mhm.
it's glad I'm happy to hear in the work that you're doing that some of the boys are being taught to think about some options that they have for their future, because some young kids I've worked with, they, because of what they've been exposed to, they don't see they don't see
Mhm.
future and options or whatever. I'm let me ask a question real quick because I'm running out of time.
Yeah, yeah. Please, anything.
um I heard you say you have two daughters.
Yes.
So, and we're all components in this whole wheel of the bigger picture. Do you teach your daughters any lessons about how they can help when it comes to the young boys? Like, look, they're going to have these challenges are here, and this is how you can be part of the team, the
Mhm.
effort, because we're all in this together. And even they play their part.
Yes, that's an excellent thing you highlight, Sister Lana, in terms of that. So both my wife and I, but in particular, they deal with young men relationally. You know, you demonstrate how you carry yourself, because people watch what you do and how you do it, and that sends a message. And even when you are violated or someone trespasses you, you deal with it with class,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't put yourself in no capricious position to be in jeopardy to be get hurt or anything like that. So they do their part by, first of all, they're not perfect, of course they're kids, but well, young ladies now, but they realize the importance of modeling that behavior and engaging like that, because it brings them further into their queenhood, but also it shows people how to treat them, because we know
Mm-hmm.
by what we do and what we don't do, we show people what they tolerate with us and how they come approach us. So I'm like, you're sending messages to people based on what you do and what you don't do.
Great. I love
So
it. I love it. I love it. Now, uh, Mr. Hall,
yeah, you call me Curtis if you want, please.
I'm just Curtis. Curtis, the reality is Curtis can't be everywhere. He
Yeah.
can't be all things to all people. And there might be some men who listen to this and say, Curtis, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lawyer, I'm just a truck driver, or I'm just the guy who works at the grocery store. I don't think I have anything of value to offer. How do we encourage more men to see that they do have value and they
Mhm.
are needed in their communities to mentor the boys in their area?
My humble information would be, if you've been through something that was challenging or multiple things and you're still here to talk about it, you have a life experience to offer.
Mhm.
Bottom line, regardless, nothing is better or worse. Everything is significant because you know what? There's a multitude of young spirits and souls out here that need, and I guarantee it's somebody they can connect with. Something they say or share or do will resonate with some young man,
Mm.
whether it's virtual, in person, or a combination thereof. So
Yes.
don't disqualify what you bring to the table because somebody sat down before you.
Awesome.
Because everybody has their own chair.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, also in line with that, there might be some young boys out there going through some things and they're looking to the left, they're looking to the right, and they're feeling alone. How do they find in their community somebody to help them, to guide them, to mentor them?
So once again, I say this a lot because it's very I feel my humble information because I just want to announce the fact that when you're in a hopeless situation, it's hard to look at the sunny sky. It's hard.
Mm,
So I don't want this to come as fantastical or imaginary, but just like when we're intentional about looking for something, God will allow it to show up because the energy we give off is what we receive. So if I'm that young man and I'm in a situation that I'm not comfortable with and I don't like, if I'm intentional about trying to get out of it, I might not even know what it look like, but I know I want something better than this, it'll start coming. So your conversation reflects that, your behavior reflects that, and somebody notices. So going back to what you drew out of me about my daughters, start carrying yourself how you want to be treated or what you don't want to tolerate. And then when you get a word about something, whether it's at school or in the street, wherever it is, and something positive, you say, I'm gonna check that out.
I love it.
You have more
Awesome.
power than you think. You have a whole lot of power, young man, young king.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love it. Now, I want to, as I was scrolling through your social media, because I try to be nosy
Oh,
and see and see what you got going on. I saw you had two events, or correct me if I messed it all up because I ain't
no
perfect.
problem.
Um, uh, Boys Bound for Success, and then you were involved in a youth night. Is did I see those?
Yes, yes, they were events, but those were collaborators. So they weren't solely New Collar Solutions. They're awesome partners here in the Central Virginia community. Boys Bound for Success is actually under the umbrella of the church that we're members of, St. Paul's
Okay.
Baptist Church of Richmond, Virginia. And I had the pleasure of being a co-lead along with an awesome gentleman named Minister Mike, where we work with young middle school and high school young men on a group. And then Youth Night is an awesome young lady here named Chelsea Young, who has a facility that she uses and does various activities. And we connected virtually. And she's so awesome. She's about 25. But I just love to see young spirits doing this. So that's why I'm getting excited. Like I love to
Mhm.
see, and I got an upcoming chat with a young man by the name of David Lomax, who I came across through my wife. I just love to see him killing it. And they're so humble. They just doing the work, just knocking it out. And it's all about connecting with those young people and those young people watching them. That's where the weight comes from. It's one thing to hear from Curtis or Sister Lana, but when you hear from your peers, it does hit different, you know.
Mhm.
So being in line with them, for lack of a better term, gives me more street cred. But at the same time, I'm so happy for them, and I know their parents are too.
Awesome. I love it. Now, I want to bring to the fact that I noticed that you call me Sister Lana, and I grew up being taught that you talk to your brothers and sisters. This is my sister. This is my brother. And
Hmm.
I think mentally, and this is a message to the young people. Mentally, it creates a bond instead of calling everybody an N or a B. So you
Hmm.
need to listen to Curtis, and you need to do what Curtis is doing because it'll mentally, psychologically bond you when you call people sister and brother instead of that's my and that's mine. Okay. So that's just my soapbox moment right there. Okay. So New College Solutions, what all does that encompass? What all do you do there?
So I do quite a bit of one-on-one with young men, the ages that you specified there, 10 through 18. I also do collaborations like with Youth Night BBFS and workshops, but also I do speaking engagements as well. So because like you pointed out, Sister Lana, like I'm only one person, so we can reach more and be more effective when we partner. So both my wife and my wife and I gotta plug my wife. She's a youth coach for young ladies ages 15 to 25, Unbreakable Minds coaching. So I'll make sure I send you her profile if you haven't seen it already. You know, that's for another time you get when you doing the sister perspective or the female perspective.
There you go. There
But
you
yeah,
go.
that's what I do. And then along with the King's Corner curriculum that implement. And I made it so flexible to where it could be done in a group or one-on-one because it has to be adapted. It can't be so rigid. When I'm engaging with young men, no pretext. I just go off of what they're exuding, and then we work from there.
Awesome.
We work from there. They lead it. I'm their wing person. So we do like this. I'm in the right side, they in the left side driving.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. And I also love the we're equally yoked. You and your wife are doing things and giving. I love that. I love to see a couple that are on the same page and putting in the work and being servants and um it's just beautiful. It's just beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, sir, I think that I have taken up the allotted time for today. I try not to take up too much time. I'm going to do my random question.
Yes, 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 please do.
And then if I could trouble you to tell people how they can connect with you,
Yes.
how they, if they need a mentor, if there's a guy out there who's saying, I'm interested and maybe you
Hmm.
can coach me on being a mentor, you know?
Yes, yes,
So,
yes.
so we're going to see what we have here. Do you only service that area or can you?
I'm open to doing virtual as well.
Okay.
So yeah, yeah, I'm open to doing virtual.
Okay, let's see here. What product would you stockpile if you found out if they weren't going to sell it anymore?
Mm, my golden sand oil that I wear.
Golden Sand, Mr. Alpha Phi Alpha Sands. Okay. I see it all working together here. Okay.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I see it all working together. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, Mr. Curtis E. Hall the second.
Oh man.
Tell us how we connect with you and find out more about everything that you've got going on. Just give us everything.
So I'm at New Color Solutions on all platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And I also have my website, newcolorsolutionsllc.com. So just come on. I welcome all and looking to do some great work with some great people and service some great young kings that's out there.
Awesome. I love it. Next time I'm in Virginia, I won't be driving through. I'm going to tell you that because we had that conversation beforehand. But next time I'm in Virginia, I have to come and check the guys out.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, I was like, I hope this don't be the last time we connect. I hope we continue to build this into a healthy friendship and even have some offline stuff where we kind of just chat, me and my wife, and chop it up. So
I'm there.
You with the halls now.
That's right. My extended family. It is the village. It's truly the village. There we
Yes.
go. There we go. Well, sir, I thank you for making time for me today. I really love the work that you are doing. I truly believe in pouring into the future generation. I'm gonna need somebody to push me around in a wheelchair anyway. So I'm glad you're grooming and raising them too. And just you and the wife keep on doing the amazing things that you're doing. I know you're raising up some princesses that are going to turn into queens. So just awesome and amazing. One more time, shout out to the brothers of Alpha Phi Alpha.
That's right.
Fraternity.
06. That's right. Better get it.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I love it. I love it. That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.
Continue blessings to you, Sister Lana, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. All right.